All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to the Observe Your Logs with Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Logging Developer webcast. My name is Tara Van Cleve, and I'm a marketing event manager for the developer initiative here at Oracle. Today, we're excited to show you what's new and how to get started with OCI Logging. If you do not currently have an Oracle Cloud account, we encourage you to create one now. We'll be recording today's session, and the link to the recording will be emailed to you after the webcast concludes. It will also be available on the developer.oracle.com virtual events page and the Oracle Developer YouTube channel. If you have any questions during the lab, please ask them in the Q&A area, and we'll have solutions architect Randall Barnes available to answer them throughout the session. Today's webcast will be presented by Harsh Kaswani, Senior Product Manager for OCI Observability Services. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Harsh.
Thanks. Hey everyone, my name is Harsh, as Tara just introduced me. I will be presenting with Randall. You can definitely ask us any questions on the chat. Randall will be helping me answering those questions as well. So today I'm gonna talk about the OCI cloud infrastructure service called Logging. And before I actually start talking about that, I wanted to highlight what are we gonna cover today. So there are 4 things that we are going to cover today. I'll be providing a high-level overview of what set of services does Oracle Cloud Infrastructure provide for observability. After that, we'll be jumping into logging specifically as one of the observability services, and then figuring out what kind of capability does logging provides, and also what are the new features that we have introduced since its initial launch last year. After that has been done, we will also have a quick look at the demo of the whole tool, specifically highlighting some of the commonly used features in the logging service. So let me get started with that. So at first, I wanted to give a high-level overview of what kind of observability services does OCI provides to our customers today. As you can see here, we have different types of logs that any customers would like to ingest or would have to monitor with. And so here we have listed audit logs, cloud events, and your standard logs or your matrices. Now, this can be coming from OCI native services, or it can also come in from customer applications or applications that you might be bringing in. And this could also be logs that are coming in from your on-prem solutions as well. Now, to ingest these logs, we have various kinds of different services which the observability set provides, which are the audit service, the event service, the logging service, and the monitoring service. I'll be specifically going over the logging service in detail today, but do check out the other services as well, which OCI provides. Later, we also have a service called Service Connector Hub, which actually allows you to take actions on the data that you have just ingested. No matter what type of action you want to take, whether it's a notification that you want to generate from a log, or let's say you want to transfer that data to a third-party solution, you can take those actions using the Service Connector Hub. Later on, we will go down the line to see how we can create a Service Connector Hub and what are the other capabilities that Service Connector Hub provides. So let's start with logging. OCI Logging service provides you 3 main capabilities today out of the box. And those are namely as centralized log management. So we have made sure that no matter where your logs are coming in, whether it's an audit log or it's an service log, which are coming from different OCI services, or whether it's a custom log, logs that are coming in from your own applications or your on-prem host, we have a pipeline for each of those. And we make sure that once you have ingested those logs, you can actually have access to all of those logs in a centralized location. And we also make sure that the process of ingesting these logs are made as simple as possible. The other thing that we also provide is the option to search and correlate these logs. So after you have ingested these logs, you would definitely want to filter or analyze some of these logs further. And so for that, we have provided a search API, which lets you drill down into your specific logs and look for interesting insights. The second thing that is that stands out in OCI logging is the rule-based action. So as I was previously talking about, you can actually take actions on your data. We make sure that using the Service Connector Hub, you can create any kind of rules, such as, hey, whenever I'm trying to figure out if a particular user has deleted an bucket, can you generate a notification? You can create that using a Service Connector Hub. And secondly, let's say you want to send some of your data, let's say to a third-party observability tool, like a SIEM tool, you can actually do that as well using the Service Connector Hub. And the third pillar that we wanted to talk about in OCI logging is the open standards that we follow. So the whole OCI logging ecosystem is built on Fluentd. And the main reason why we did that was because we wanted to follow the open standard format of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, which supports the Cloud Events 1.0 standard. And by doing this, we are not just making sure that our logs are standardized, but it's standardized, which is adoptable by the industry as well. And these would be the, the founding pillars, which makes us more adaptable with the industry. Now let's look at how actually a user navigates through OCI logging. What kind of capability does OCI logging provide to its customers? So today, there are various types of logs, as we talked about earlier, that a customer can ingest. You have OCI service logs, audit logs, which are being generated by OCI services. And you also have application logs or security logs that would be customer generated. You can ingest both types of log. Once those logs are ingested, you have the option of searching or analyzing those logs using our search API. And lastly, once those logs have been ingested, you can take actions on it using the Service Connector Hub. And there are various actions that are possible using the Service Connector Hub. You can either send those data to an object storage or a stream. You can also send this data to other services like log analytics or monitoring. You can also send this data to a function so that you can perform some kind of an ad hoc operation on top of it. You can also send a notification based on some very specific log events based on your use case. Now we will dive into each one of this to see what are the capabilities that each of these provide. So as I was talking about ingestion, so we have three different types of log that we classify in OCI logging. We have the audit logs, we have the OCI service logs, and we have custom logs. The audit logs are enabled as such that a user doesn't have to do any kind of configuration. It's available by default. So as soon as a user gets access to their tenancy, the audit logs will be already configured automatically, and the audit logs will start flowing in. We don't charge for audit logs, as those are made available for free. For the OCI service logs, users does have to do a minimalistic configuration. We have made sure that this configuration is done within 2 clicks. So users just have to click 2 different buttons to make sure that their service logs have been configured. And we support various kinds of OCI services, such as object storage, load balancer, flow logs by default. And lastly, we have the custom logs. Custom logs covers everything else, which could be logs coming in from different services which we have not integrated with, logs coming in from on-prem host, logs that might be coming in from other cloud vendors. And for this, there is a configuration required, as well as agent that is required to be installed on the host. If you are using an OCI instance, these agents are installed on it by default. But if you are using an on-prem instance, you definitely would have to install the agent and configure it to pick those logs in. For the agent, we used a Fluentd-based agent, which again provides hundreds of plugins right out of the box. Because we have integrated with the open standards, this makes it very easy to integrate with other plugins which are already created in the market. You can plug in any of those, or you can also take some of the pre-built parser, Fluentd-based parser, and you can use one of those for your use cases. Now, there is also the capability of segregating your data once it has been ingested using logs and log groups. So we have a concept of a log object where users, when they are picking a destination for their logs, they get to choose two options, a log group and a log object. One particular log group can have multiple log objects. So you can actually club your similar type of logs under one umbrella. So for example, if you have security logs coming in from different hosts, you can club all of them under one umbrella as a log group. And not just that, these log groups and log objects are policy driven. So you can actually provide IAM authorization specific to your need for these log objects and log groups as well, so that only the person, those who would have to have access of read and write, would be able to access those particular logs. And you can also limit it based on different user groups permissions. So once we have actually ingested the log, the next step is analyzing the logs. So as I was just talking, we have a search query language, which is a lot similar to an SQL-like language in terms of querying. And this actually provides you a very good intuitive interface where you can filter through your logs, or you can summarize your log, let's say, and you can also perform actions as such that in case you have data which needs a correlation or munging of logs from different log objects and querying data from different log objects, you can join those two different types of data and search across those as well. Now, the whole search experience is built as such that no matter your data that you are pulling in or that you want to search, is it coming from audit, or is it coming from your custom logs, or is it coming from your service log? You can select any number of logs and then search across those. This provides you an easy to use interface, because when an analyst usually ends up searching for a particular log, he might not be able to just search across one particular type of log. He might even have to correlate and search across various log objects. And by doing so, they would be able to resolve their issue or get to the detection pretty fast. We have a few extensive functions that are available as part of the query language. So whether you are doing lookups, whether you are doing a deduping of the duplicate items, or you are doing any kind of filtering, or you're doing any summarizing options like average, min, max, sum, all of those are available out of the box. We have support for saving the search as well. So once you have written a search for your particular need, you can save it for a later time as well. And it will save the whole action of that particular search. And you can just invoke it from the main search page, which we will show in the demo as well. Now, once you have analyzed the logs, the next step comes in on taking the action. So as we were previously talking about, we have a direct integration with Service Connector Hub. Service Connector Hub is another service that OCI provides, which lets you connect any two services on OCI so that you can transfer or perform any kind of actions on top of your data. OCI Logging has integration with various services, such as notification to generate any kind of notification as an email, Jira, PagerDuty, or webhooks. They also have integration with OCI monitoring. In case you want a particular event generated in a log to be sent as a metric to OCI monitoring, you can do that as well. And the third option that is also provided is a functional integration. Some of the times what users try to do is as soon as a particular kind of logs get set, they want to transfer those particular log events specifically to third-party SIEM tools. They can now do that using the function integration. They can send this data to a function and invoke the third-party service API through those functions and send those events with or without any kind of enrichment that the user might need to those third-party endpoints. We also have a direct integration with object storage and streaming as well. So in case you want to directly send any kind of log object to an object storage, maybe for archival purposes or long storage, you can do that. And you can also send the data to a stream. Let's say, for example, Splunk has a support for ingesting data from stream. You can stream these data out through OCI logging to Splunk using the OCI streaming service. Lastly, we also have integration with logging analytics in case you want to perform any kind of advanced logging operations, such as anomaly detection or clustering and so on. Now, since we talked about different types of log data that we have ingested, I wanted to give some time on audit logs as well, because audit logs are enabled by default. Its retention period is the highest, which is that for 365 days, we retain these logs by default, and it's provided for free. We don't charge for any kind of any audit logs that we ingest. The second, audit logs do provide you the information about each and every API invocation that happens at OCI. So you would know about who, what, when, and why a person is doing any particular API call to troubleshoot or for security purposes. And you would also have access to IAM policies API calls. So for example, if someone has been given any access to a resource, those will be recorded as an audit event. You can look into it as long as it's for the last 1 year. We also have the option of looking at the data as a stream. So for example, let's say a user logs in and he performs a few operations on the system in the last 1 hour and then logs out. You can actually make sure that you are just selecting that particular username and looking at an activity stream data so that you will know, since the user has logged in, what all are the activities that the user has performed before logging out, and keep track of those events as well. Apart from audit logs, we also had the direct integration with Service Connector Hub. We have already called it out previously. Service Connector Hub actually enables, as we were just saying, enables creation of or taking any action on data from one service to another service. So in our case, logging actually has integration with various services, which we which we just covered. So whether it's an object storage action or whether it's Oracle functions action or a notification action, you can take all of those. We make sure that whenever these data are in transfer, those are centralized and secured so that you won't have to worry about the security of those logs during the transfer. And we also make sure that the data integration, actually the Service Connector Hub has third-party accesses as well. So for example, when we were talking about integrating with Splunk, whenever you are trying to move a data directly to Splunk, you can do it directly through the OCI streaming service, and OCI streaming service would be able to send the data to those public endpoints, which will be on the other side. This was just an overview of what Service Connector Hub provides as a capability. Now, I wanted to also highlight a few of the key features that we have launched in the last 6 months, and what does each of these mean for our users. First, we are going to talk about the new Fluentd output plugin for OCI Logging. We have built this plugin for use cases where customer doesn't want to use our agent. We have an agent called Unified Monitoring Agent, which our customers use whenever they want to ingest any kind of data from their host. But we have heard this request from customers that they didn't want to use our agent. They wanted to use their agent and their own setup for pushing the logs to OCI Logging. What it means is, let's say a user wants to use an open source Fluentd agent, and he has some of his configuration already in place, using which he is enriching some of his data. Once those enrichment has been done, that's when the user wants to push the data into OCI Logging. So now they can actually do it via the output plugin that we make available for OCI Logging. So all the user have to do is they have to make sure that they have an agent which picks the data. And if they have an enrichment layer in between, they point the enrichment layer to the output plugin through which the logs start getting pushed out to OCI Logging. We have the link for the plugin as well available in the next slides, which you can find out once we share these slides with you as well. And the next feature that I wanted to talk about were the out-of-the-box support for 10 OCI services. So when we actually launched our service, we had integration with 6 OCI services out of the box. We have increased it to 10 now. So we have out-of-the-box integration with most of the popular services as well today. So whether you have an VCN logs enabled in your system, we have integration with that. Or if you have integration with your object storage buckets that you are using, we have an integration with object storage logs as well. We also ingest logs for load balancer. To get access to the whole list of all the OCI services, you can check the logging doc, where once you click on the service log section, it will list out all the services that we are supporting right out of the box. The third thing I wanted to highlight is the agent support for Ubuntu. Previously, we had 3 OS support through our agent. We had the Linux support, the Windows support, and the CentOS. Now we had added support for Ubuntu as well. So if you want to install the agent on your Ubuntu host, you can do that as well. And last but not the least, searching with the names. So for those who have experienced our OCI logging platform, whenever a user wants to search across a particular log object, they would have to call that a log object using the ID. But now we have made it even more intuitive for users to call that particular log object using the name itself. So for example, let's say you have just created a log object called syslog. Rather than using the OCID or the Oracle ID, you can now just call search syslog, and it will identify which particular log object are you trying to access and show you the results for that. These are the new logging updates that I wanted to highlight. Now let's move on to the demo section. So I have a recording already available for you guys. I'll be talking over it. So firstly, the logging service is actually available under the observability and management tab. As soon as you click here, you will have the logging option enabled there. Once you click on it, the first thing that you would see is the home page. Yeah, first thing that you will see is the home page for the search. This is the main place where users search for their log data or look for any kind of search data. And once we will cover actually this search page later on. First, I wanted to actually show you how do we actually ingest these data, and then we can go over how do we analyze these data sets. So audit data are available right out of the box, as I said earlier. You won't have to do any kind of configuration to enable these logs. And audit data are also enabled in such a way that you can filter using different kind of parameters. So for example, here I'm doing a filtering based on my name to see all the activities that I did since I have logged in. And also you can do it based on other filters like the action types. So I'm just looking at the post activities, and you can also have filtering using resource, event type, and so on. You can also filter the data based on the time. If you want to see it for 5 minutes, 15 minutes, or your own custom time. You can explore these logs in your normal search as well. You can explore, if you click by open in search, you will see the results of that data in the search options. The next thing we are going to talk about is the service logs. So there are two places where you can enable service logs today, in the OCI logging panel and also in the OCI resources panel. Now, first we are going to look at the in the OCI service panel. So here I'm trying to look for a service for which I want to enable my logs. I've selected an object storage, and then I'm selecting the bucket that I had created. And I'm trying to see what kinds of logs can I enable here. I won't be enabling the log here in this case because I want to show it how easy it is to enable these logs if you go into the resource page itself. So we are jumping into the object storage bucket. The location for that. Yep. So we have just accessed our bucket, which is the demo bucket log. Once we have accessed that bucket, you can see on the left panel, we have the logs tab. Once you click on it, it shows you what types of logs are available and which one of them are active versus inactive. As soon as you enable the log, it will start showing that, hey, the status is updating and those logs will be enabled in a few seconds. You can also click on the log button from the resource page and it will directly take you to the log object that has been created for you, where the logs will start flowing in for that particular bucket. Similarly, now we are going to go back to logs again and talk about custom logs. So custom logs does need a bit more configuration. For the first, you would definitely have to define what would be your log object, where those logs will be sent to. Once you have defined that, the next step is to create an agent config. So an agent config will define the agent where to pick the logs from and which instance. So for that, the first thing that we are giving is giving the configuration a name. Yeah. Once we have given the name, we make sure that it's on the right compartment where we want the configuration to live. Then the second thing we do is we select the right dynamic group. A dynamic group is always tied to an instance. So it's very important to make sure you have selected the right dynamic group, because that's where the instant mapping is being done. After this, we are defining the log path from where the file should be picked up on those instances. And we are also providing an input name for those logs. And finally, you just hit on create and you will start seeing the configuration being created. And if the logs are already being sent there, it will start pulling in those logs. So now, as we have seen how you enable all the three different types of logs, let's see how do we select those logs. So in this use case, what we are doing is we are selecting audit data. We are also selecting a service log, and we are also selecting a custom log that we just created. And once we select all of the three, we can see how it shows up. The default format that we support is JSON. Once these logs are available, you can also perform advanced queries on it. So for example, here, I'm searching for a very specific field in all of these three types of logs, which is data.event name. And as you can see in the result, our data got filtered with that one particular field. And you can also perform other operations if you want to summarize your data, or if you want to aggregate any kind of data over time. The next, what I'm performing right now is saving that search, which I just performed, in case I want to use it in the future. And as soon as I click on it, an object got created, which you can access directly from the notification. Now let's look at a service connector hub as well, because this is where we actually take the actions on top of the data that we have ingested and analyzed. So to create a service connector hub, obviously first we have to start with a name, followed by we also have to select a source. So in our case, it would be logging. And then we would have to also select a target. So let's assume we are trying to send the data into an object storage bucket. So we'll take an object storage bucket. So in this case, you can select any kind of log groups and log combination. You can also select multiple number of log groups and log objects. and then define a bucket where you want to send these logs into. And once you are done with that, your setup is done. As soon as you save it, your logs will start flowing into those object storage. This is also commonly used when users have to send the data into object storage for archival. And that's it for the demo.
Thank you. Alrighty, so we do have some additional resources we'd like to share with you. The first is, if you enjoyed today's session, we'd like to invite you to join us at our upcoming developer webcast on November 17th, which is where you can learn about the advantages of developing, testing, and deploying all in the same architecture through the use of ARM-based emulators. And then we also encourage you to share with us any feedback you have on today's session or on what you'd like to see from us going forward. So there is a QR code and link to access our survey. We also wanted to share with you that Oracle University is now offering free access to OCI training, including free certification exams through December 31st of this year. So be sure to check out that link as well. I'd like to thank Harsh again for the great presentation, and thank you all for spending your time here with us. So with that, I'll go ahead and end today's session. Have a great day, and we hope to see you again next time.